Okay, good morning, everyone. We're here for the regular council meeting of November 7th. Just a quick reminder, we do have a Remembrance Day ceremony this Saturday coming up at the Arm of Rickshot office in front of the cenotaph, and it does start at 11 a.m. So we recommend coming for 10:45, 10:50 a.m. Going forward, we are going to start the regular meeting. Quick introductions. We have with us Councillor Shane Pelletier.
Good morning.
Councillor Joel Lemoine.
Good morning.
Councillor Jason Bodnerchuk.
Good morning.
Councillor Janine Boulanger.
Good morning, everybody.
Myself, Chris Ewan. We have with us our CEO, Assistant CEO, and I believe our CFO is with us today.
Yeah, good morning.
Perfect.
Morning.
Thank you, everyone. I think that's everyone that's with us. Okay, without further ado, we will get started with item number 1, meeting called to order. Do I have a mover? Councillor Pelletier, second. Councillor Lemoine. Any changes, items, questions? No, I'll call for the question. Those in favor? That is carried. I'll open the meeting at 9:01 a.m. Item 2, adoption of the agenda. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Blanchet.
Second, Councillor Boulanger. Thank you. Any changes? Go as is. Council's good with the agenda?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Item number 3, adoption of the minutes. Do I have a mover? Councillor Pelletier, second. Councillor Lemoine. Go ahead, Mr. CEO.
The last regular council meeting was held on October 18th, whereby council entertained 2 variations, 1 conditional use. They also passed the 3rd reading of the amalgamation of the utility reserves and also a resolution regarding Manitoba Transportation and Infrastructure permission for digital sign locations.
Thank you. Council, any comments, questions, edits? No, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item 5.1, there's no committee reports, so we'll move on to item 5.1. Accounts paid to be approved. Do I have a mover? Councillor Pelletier, second. Councillor Bodnerchuk.
2 batches in the paid to be approved, batch 17898 in the amount of 42,000 and 17 batch 17915 in the amount of $152. The 42,000 is all office project related. So if you open up the batch, that's what that is.
Perfect. Any comments or questions?
No.
Nope.
Call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item 5.2, accounts not paid to be approved. Do I have a mover? Councillor Lemoine, second. Councillor Lemoine.
Again, 2 batches, 17,926 in the amount of 7.2 million, and batch 17,937 for 2,900. In the 7.2 million, it was tax collection October 31st. So we must remit a good chunk of that money collected to the schools, to the sum of 81%. That's what we've collected as of October 31st. Therefore, that is around 6.8 million in dues to the school. So the other portion is 425, and you could find that broken down into the summary provided.
Perfect. Thank you. Council, any comments, questions? No, I'll call for the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item 5.2.1, council indemnities. Do I have a mover? Councillor Pelletier, second. Councillor Lemoine.
Indemnities for the council of the month of October ranges anywhere from 7 to 26 hours. The higher being 8 hours at a business expo. Other than that, nothing else to report.
Perfect. Any comments or questions? Nope. Call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to 5.3, payroll to be approved. Do I have a mover? Councillor Boulanger, second. Councillor Bodnerchuk.
Resolution for payroll number 21, not much to report, a couple of overtime hours on the public works side for ditching, otherwise all good to go.
Perfect. Council, any comments or questions?
Nope.
Nope.
No. We'll call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 5.4, transfer from utility reserve. Do I have a mover? Councillor Pelletier, second Councillor Belanger.
The transfers, utility reserves are for the RSR work done to date regarding the wastewater facility. I believe this is the first invoice that is payable to the town of Nicolville, who is doing the general financing management of the project.
Council, any comments or questions?
Just on the sheet, we've got a breakdown of percentage. Why is Grand Point not on there?
Grand Point is part of the Ile des Chênes utility, so that it would fall under that.
Oh, right. Yeah,
Um,
sorry.
No problem. Just friendly reminders from time to time.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just percentages are based on connections, population, both.
It's currently it's a kind of a moving target. It's estimated flows that will be coming into the wastewater treatment facility. Again, we're playing with numbers right now to try to get the cost of the project down a little bit by reducing the scope or the number of cubic meters coming into the facility. So not trying to restricting ourselves, but it's based on that kind of formula, what's coming into the plant.
Thanks.
No, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. I think we're moving into delegations, and I believe our first delegation is here, correct, Mr. CEO?
Yes, I saw them online.
Perfect. So we will go to 6.1, the Exchange Group 2022 audited financial statements presentation. Take it away, Mr. Ian.
Good morning. How's everyone this morning?
Good,
Great.
thank you.
Bright and early start to municipal governance. Lovely to see.
That's how we roll here.
Yeah. So Mitch has asked me to come in and do, you know, a real quick overview of the 2022 audit, which I'm happy to do. I'm happy to talk as long as you'd like or as short as you'd like. I do tend to ramble on incoherently most of the time, according to my wife. So if at any point I'm you know, causing your eyes to glaze over or anything of the sort, please just put your hand up and I'll try and wrap it up as quickly as I can. So first of all, you know, a big thanks to Mitch and his staff as always. It's imperative for us as auditors to have the assistance of the CAO and his staff or her staff in some cases. Provide us with the means and the opportunity to sort of get through the process as quickly as possible. Obviously, we're very late on the audit this year. Couple reasons for that. Primarily, you guys had a significant, you know, changeover in staff, new CFO coming in, which sort of slows the process down, obviously a little bit, but more important than that, of course, is this need for consolidating sundry entities into your financial statements in order for presentation on a PSAS basis. It's a real bone of contention, and it's rampant throughout the province. Richelieu's not the only one where this happens. I don't have a solution for you. I don't have a magic bullet as to how to make that process more seamless. But it sure would be nice to be able to be, you know, sitting with you nice folks and talking about the financial results of the municipality on a more timely basis. I mean, timely and accurate financial information is the one key component to making good fiscal decisions in terms of governance of the municipality and safeguarding the assets of the ratepayers and all that good stuff. that gets rolled up into your fiduciary duties. We're now almost a year late. Your budgetary process for the 2023 year is nearly done. Any, really big things that had come out of the audit that we could have talked about that in sufficient amount of time to perhaps make some changes as required, is sort of long past by this point. However, having said that, we are done. We do have some results for you, so let's just sort of briefly go over them. So I'm just going to do a really high level pass. I don't know whether you folks have the financial statements in front of you or not, so I'm assuming that you do. So I would ask you to go to the auditor's report, which is kind of the third page of the very voluminous statement. So this is actually the document that you pay us to produce. The financial statements are the responsibility of management, although in the case of your municipality, we do provide some significant assistance in the drafting of those because of our expertise in PSAB formatting. But this is really the document you pay us for. It's the independent auditor's opinion. Again, an audit opinion. We went over this last year, so I won't go in great detail as to what it outlines, but the auditor's opinion is basically a independent third-party verification of the financial results contained within the financial statements with using a concept of materiality. And I went over that last year, so there's not a lot of discussion about that unless there's some interest in what that term means or require clarification by anyone on that. Lots of blank faces, so I'm assuming no. So we audit the accompanying consolidated financial statements of the RM, which comprise the consolidated statement of financial position as at December 31, 2022, and the consolidated statements of operations, accumulated surplus, change net financial assets, and cash flows for the year then ended. In our opinion, the consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the RM as at December 31, 2022, and the results of its operations, change net financial assets, and cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. So essentially, it's a clean audit opinion. We didn't find any errors in the financial information that we felt required to be restated, changed, adjusted in any such way that we had a conflict with management to do so. All of our suggestions for adjusting entries were agreed to and made. So there you go. That is not to say that they are perfect. It is possible that there could be a couple of minuscule errors, which we felt were not significant enough in volume to require a change. Sometimes we do what's called a reclass entry in order to present the financial information a little bit differently for PSAB purposes as opposed to municipal fund accounting, which don't necessarily get posted into your financial records. But at the end of the day, everything was tickety-boo. So we go on to describe how we form the basis for our opinion. We go on to describe the different responsibilities of the three levels involved in the audit: ourselves as auditors, management, meaning your staff and administration, and yourselves as those charged with governance. We do talk a fairly significant amount about our responsibilities because it's kind of the biggest part of it. We talk about obtaining reasonable assurance, not exact assurance. And I always use the example of the discrepancy or the differences between a financial statement audit process, which is what we've been engaged to undertake, and a forensic audit, which is a completely different level of detail in terms of its engagement. Essentially, we test the areas of the financial results of the community predicated on a risk matrix. We look at the areas that are riskier than others, and we test them more extensively. In addition to that, our utilization of materiality is really forms the basis of all of our testing and all of our calculations as to how big of a test sample we require and stuff like that. We use 2% of expenditures, which puts us in around, sorry, I had the number written down here 5 seconds ago and now I can't find it. So that puts us around $240,000. We, however, drive that down further. We use what we call performance materiality. So we use 75% of that number as forming the basis of all of our calculations. Depending on the risk area, that number might get dropped to 10% of that. best example would be receivables. You've identified significant amounts of money still owing to the community from various sources. So we drive that down because that's a higher risk area, down to a 10%. We look at scope of 33% of that number and stuff like that. So it becomes quite detailed in some levels, but overall it's just sort of a passes the sniff test kind of process. In any event, as I said, it's clean audit opinion, not a lot to talk about on that. Was there any questions on any of that? Nope. Cool. Okay, so on page 5 is the consolidated statement of financial position. This is a snapshot in time representing, or sorry, a cumulative of numbers representing the assets, liabilities, and surplus of the community over time as at December 31, 2022. So when we go through it, the top part is your financial assets, then your liabilities, then what we call non-financial assets, ending up with an overall accumulated surplus. So the community had, a slight drop in its cash, about $1 million this year. That's attributed to a couple of things. One, if you look the line below it, that's your receivable balance is quite a bit higher this year than last year. So as you're not collecting your monies, obviously you're using your cash resources. So the biggest difference in your receivables is this very significant DFA claim of a couple $1 million. Not surprising for anybody that lived in the community in 2022 that there was some significant flood damage. So hopefully those monies, flow back into the community and addresses your utilization of your cash. We've got some loans and advances of 1.3, which is a little bit less than 1.4 of the prior year. Overall financial assets of 20 million versus 19. As I'm sure I mentioned last year, in terms of the presentation of financial information for your use as a council, PSAB financial statements aren't necessarily the best vehicle for that, because you still do all of your budgeting utilizing the old municipal fund accounting system. The financial results sort of get very skewed when you look at PSAB number versus municipal audit, or municipal fund accounting. So that discrepancy makes it difficult to sort of equate, okay, well, how did we do this year versus last year when our budget said that we did this? And again, it is difficult to sort of satisfactorily explain some of those differences. The best way I can describe it is that these are really a full accrual set of financial statements, whereas municipal fund is really more on a cash basis. Having said all of the grading comments about PSAB financial statements and how useless or useful they are, there are several items that really sort of jump out at you when you're looking at these things. One of these is this concept of net financial assets. And again, net financial assets is essentially a current ratio. It's the municipality's ability to pay its obligations as they become due. So your net financial assets of $20 million and your net liabilities of 13 million show that you have net net liabilities of 6.7 show that you have net financial assets of $13 million. So that's very healthy. And as you compare it to prior years, that number's increased. So that just shows, good fiscal management on a going forward basis. Now that number may from time to time decrease. The primary reason for that is you take some of your cash or your financial assets and you convert those to longer term assets, which then becomes a non-financial asset. But that can also be good because it shows that you're investing in the future of the community. One of the hardest things for most councillors or councils to truly grasp is this concept of fiduciary duty to the ratepayers. It's an ongoing thing. It's not just for the current ratepayers, it's for the future ratepayers as well. So by choosing to utilize your cash resources and invest in tangible capital assets going forward for the benefit of future ratepayers shows good fiscal governance. Speaking of which, we see an increase in your tangible capital assets of 64 to 63, about $1 million. And essentially that means that the community invested about $4 million in new tangible capital assets during the current year. Those assets are amortized depending on various rates at about $2.8 million. So we see a net increase of 1.1 or so. Got some inventories largely comprised of gravel and culverts and all sorts of other things that make the municipal world go round. Overall accumulated surplus of the community is $78 million versus 76 in the prior year. So very fiscally healthy when you look at those numbers. Some of those numbers look really, really big. One of the things that I like to discuss is this concept of adequate planning for the future. And the primary vehicle for that is, of course, the reserves of the community. Reserves exist solely for two purposes, the pay down of long-term debt and the acquisition of future capital assets. I mean, that's it. It's that simple. So when you look at how much the community has allocated to its reserves as a ratio of the assets that you hold, we got about $10.7 million in reserves at the end of the year. So if you look at $64 million in tangible capital assets, you know, it's about 16.5% ratio. In the prior year, that number was about 13.6%. So you've increased your reserves to account for the fact that you're recognizing you have to plan better for the future. Again, as a tool for councils to sort of keep track of how they're doing and what they're looking at, that's a number that you should be looking at on a regular basis. It's also a really good way to compare yourself to other communities. Everybody publishes their financial statements online. You can sort of pull those off and you can do the math. Everybody always wants to know how much should we as a council look at allocating to reserves on an annual basis? And the simple answer to that is there is no simple answer. It's much like asking a life insurance salesman, how much life insurance do you require? Or a retirement planner, how much money do you require to retire? Every one of those professionals is going to have a different reason and a different number and a different reason for why they have a different number. So it's really, as a council, how do you feel about not sacrificing, it's not the correct word, but how do you feel about utilizing current resources to plan for the future as opposed to, you know, utilizing your resources for the current ratepayers as opposed to the future ratepayers? Because sooner or later you're going to have to, as a council, maybe not you necessarily, but council and municipality itself is going to have to replace sewer and water lines, fix roads, you know, do all these things that make the community go forward. So you do need to consider those things. Quite often what we see a very, very significant drop in that concept of net financial assets and reserve balances in a 1 or 2 year period where you've got aging infrastructure in a community, largely as a result of councils making fiscal decisions more for present than for future. And then all of a sudden they have to do a big catch up. So you can see big drops in those numbers. It's not necessarily time to hit the panic button when you hear those, see those, but as long as you understand the decision-making process involved in that and seeing the future benefit, it can probably make some sense. Where you want to get cautious is where you see those numbers dropping year over year over year. That might be an indication that you might need to rethink your fiscal policies. You may need to rethink about what the importance of certain projects may or may not be. Planning for the future may take precedence over the current needs. I wouldn't advise doing that in an election year, obviously, if you're running again, because, you know, those guys will get a little bit bent, but certainly it is something to consider going forward. Any questions on any of the financial statement of financial position? Lots of shaking heads and yeah. Okay. Next page is consolidated statement of operations. This is essentially the money in, money out, money left over statement. All of your revenues, all of your expenses, and what did you have left over? Keeping in mind the biggest difference between the PSAB financial statement and municipal fund is revenues are recognized when received, not necessarily when they're allocated against the expenses. In municipal fund, you can have this concept of deferred revenue. You get a $4 million capital grant for a new lagoon. That number doesn't get recognized as revenue in the year you receive it. It gets recognized as you spend that money. And that's the biggest difference. So when you're going to see a big blurb up in your revenues one year because you get this $4 million capital grant, large surplus. And then as you go forward over the years and that money gets spent, you see the deficits in those years. So you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. One of the biggest tools that we have in our workbox when we're doing auditing is and looking at areas to drill into is preliminary variance analysis. So we like to look at, because we're bean counters, we like numbers. We like to look at numbers comparatively. In a for-profit business that sort of just ticks along and, you know, doesn't change very much, we look at current year versus prior year. And then if there's big swings, we like to know why, and it gives us areas to focus in on. With municipalities, it's a little bit different because in the municipal world, things can change so much year over year. So what we tend to do is we tend to look at what you budgeted and what you spent, keeping in mind that the budget items presented here are a kind of bastardized version of your budget numbers because we have to try and convert them to a PSAB format that makes some sense. It's even more confusing because the only real budget numbers that we place any reliance are the budget of the municipality itself, because municipalities are very good at budgeting. So we take those numbers and then we convert them to a PSAB format, and where possible, we try and add in the consolidating entities information as well where it exists. So sometimes those numbers look a little bit wonky. It's probably better to look at your budget numbers versus, say, Schedule 13 for expenditures, because that's just the municipality, whereas everything else is, you know, a consolidated statement. So, but be that as it may, we do use these. So, you know, you look at $19.5 million budgeted for revenues versus 15, big swing. Why is the difference? Well, the biggest difference is your user fee budget of $7.1 million is sort of a pie in the sky kind of number. And I'll explain that for a second. Your user fee budgeted revenue is only $3.1 million. The reason that it's 7.1 here is because on Schedule 10, like I said, we have to convert that number, and we pull in the numbers from the landfill that you share with somebody else, or with GFL, I'm sorry. So it sort of skews that number considerably because you don't budget for all of their revenues. You just budget for your own expenditures and revenues, right? So that number is a little bit wonky, so you can kind of discount that. And then if you look at this year's user fees versus last year's, it's more comparison, because that's the other thing we do is we go budget to actual, look for the variances, see if we can explain them. And then if we need a little more reassurance, we go back to the prior year and say, well, how big of a difference really was it? And it really wasn't. And that's really the big difference. The other big difference is your water and sewer. So we've got $3.1 million budgeted. Largely that's grants that didn't come through. You had budgeted to receive some capital grants for some projects that you were to undertake in 2022. They didn't happen. They're now happening in 2023. And if you look at your 2023 budget, you can see those numbers continually budgeted there. So that's a very reasonable explanation as why your actual revenues recognized is considerably lower. If you budget to get $1 million for a new sewer and water project, the project gets put on hold, you don't get the money. That's just what it is. The budget's just a snapshot in time. So overall total revenue, 19.5, as I said, versus 15.2 actual. Your expenditures are way more in line. Like if you look at your total budget line, it's $11.6 million and you spent 12.6. And most of the variances there's just a whole bunch of little things. It's kind of, you know, like the death of 1,000 cuts. There's nothing specific that jumps out. General government services is up about 300 grand over your budget, but that's not surprising in an election year that you would have that. You got a transition in council, you know, a little more costs in your government, stuff like that. Environmental health, again, same thing, a bit of a swing, but it's also a really difficult number to budget because it's processed through an entity that council doesn't really control. So it makes it very difficult to budget for that number. Everything else is sort of cheek by jowl all the way through. Actual is of 12.6 versus 11, annual surplus of $2.6 million. And again, keep in mind that that's not necessarily a cash surplus. That's just revenues less expenses. And again, because we recognize monies to come in as revenue and monies to go out as expenses, sometimes that doesn't quite equate to the bottom line that you see on your financials. Any questions on that?
I think we're good. We are getting close to the end though, Ian.
Yeah.
I hate to push you
No,
down.
no, that's I'm happy to go away. Trust me. No, that's fine.
How much more do you have, Ian, before I
No,
say
that the only other thing I wanted to touch on was to continue the thought on the differences between like a PSAB surplus and how it affects your cash is to look at the statement of cash flows, which is page 8. So that shows your operating surplus, shows a whole bunch of adjustments for non-cash transactions, what you spent on your capital, changes in your investing activities for a net change in your cash of $930,000. And it just sort of shows you how all that flows through. The last point that I always like to put out for consideration is the very last page, which is Schedule 14. This is a bit of a bastard child created by the province. Once they went to PSAB reporting and they started getting all the PSAB audits and they went, holy crap, like we don't understand these numbers. So how does this relate to a surplus deficit under the Municipal Act? So they plunked this schedule in and then said to the auditors, you guys got to figure it out. And of course, we all responded, said, no, we don't, because we're not engaged to audit under the Municipal Act any longer. We audit under PSAB. So so you note on it that it says unaudited, and the only numbers that we really sort of feel firm about is the bottom line, which is the net surplus per the consolidated statement of operations under PSAB format, because that's what our audit entails. The rest of it is a reconciliation going backwards, for lack of a better phrase, to what it would have looked like if we had reported under municipal surplus under the Municipal Act. So the only time this statement ever becomes an issue is if you're showing deficits that aren't easily explainable. The province would like to know why. So because the community showed a $326,000 surplus under the Municipal Act, that's it. The province won't care. They will simply take your financial statements, click the box that said you filed them and that you didn't have a deficit, and Bob's your uncle, and we'll see you next year. Any questions on any of that?
Council, you guys have any questions?
Not
Well,
here.
everyone's still awake, so that's good.
No, well, I do appreciate the time and thank you very much. Do you have anything else to add?
No, other than as I said, a thank you to Mitch and his staff, and of course to you nice folks at the council for allowing us to continue to be of service to your community.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Ian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, have a good day.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, great. Now, some more exciting information and delegations. We have the RCMP with us, I believe, and hopefully everything looks bright and dandy like our audited financial statement. So I will pass it over to, I don't know who's with us.
Hello, yes, Kevin and Melanie.
Hello, how are you guys?
Good, you guys.
We're great. We're looking forward to hearing from what's going on in the RCMP world and in Richard specifically. So take it away.
All right. So before I start, you guys had a look at the stats. Do you guys have any question regarding the stats?
I don't know. Does council have any questions?
The only question I have, it's a quick one, and it's more to do with Q1 and Q2, the significant drop in traffic offenses in St. Adolphe. I just want to know, is that due to better driving or just not as much enforcement currently because you guys are tied up with other stuff in other areas as well?
Yeah, I see a big difference there. If I look at the stats for sure for St. Adolphe, St. Agathe, But if you look at Richshot, I think what happened, we had some MPI funding there for traffic, and looks like my members spend lots of time in Richshot area, which if you look at the stat, it went 63 more than the last quarter there. So a little bit more there. And St. Adolphe, St. Agathe, yeah, I guess it's the enforcement missing time to be a little bit more proactive in the area. But that's something with MPI. We have 2 members that are pretty involved with MPI doing random traffic. So I expect, like, especially for the Christmas and the holiday coming up, there we'll have a little bit more involvement in those community there, looking at doing some check stops and doing some traffic enforcement there.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Anything else, council, before I get in here?
Not here.
No. Councillor Belanger, Councillor Lemoine.
No, I just, can you guys hear me? I don't know if my mic's working. Yeah, okay. I just had a couple, the usuals. I think up in Waverly North, it's going well. I'm not sure. I haven't heard from the neighbors, so I think things are going good there. I did have one request, and it's a very small road, so I don't know if you guys, like, it's one of those hard to deal with. You kind of got to be there when it's happening, but apparently there's drag races going on Petit Road, which is in Grand Point. And I know they say they called the RCMP, but by the time you got there, of course, there's nothing there, and people just use that road because it's a paved road that goes to nowhere. So it seems like a perfect drag race strip. So just wanted to alert you to that area.
Did the people in Grand Point, did they notice it's always on the weekend? Is it like a Friday, Saturday night? Do they have any trend that we can keep in mind there?
They didn't. I asked them, and they kind of went, well, no, it's just kind of random. I guess maybe they do it random so that it's not a schedule for them. So like I said, it's going to be very hard to monitor and do. But I just wanted I said I would bring it up and make sure that people actually knew, or make sure you guys actually knew where Petit Road was, and if you ever go down there.
And you know what? I will have to check if I did not see, same for Melanie. I don't think we receive any complaint about it, but I will encourage people that come to you to call us, create a file. The more file we get, the more we can start looking at a trend, or maybe having like something in place, right? I noticed that in other communities, it's not just you guys, but sometimes they talk more on the either on the web page for the community, like people will talk about something happening, but nothing was reported to us, right? So if we don't know, it's hard for us to do some enforcement, but I encourage people to call, report it. The more it's documented, the better it is for us to keep track, right?
Yeah.
Another thing I can talk to, Ile des Chênes. I don't know if you guys noticed a little bit more files there, 10 more for Ile des Chênes. Those charges for crimes against person. Those charges seems like it's quite a bit of activity there, but it's one file with 4 individuals that was charged for several offenses. There was a break-in enter with some firearms that was stolen in Ile des Chênes. So that's why those stats were a little bit higher. But we located about pretty much all the firearms, and 4 individuals were charged for that. So all from Winnipeg area, right?
Oh, wow.
Here. One thing I wanted to bring to your attention, I'm sure you've noticed it too, is the businesses have rallied. They've reached out to me, and they're very concerned with the amount of theft or crimes against property that are going on. St. Agathe specifically in the business area, and Ile des Chênes. So they're looking and asking for any help that they can get from the municipality, and asking me to direct that attention to you guys to see what we can do to increase. I don't know if it's patrolling. I don't know if it's almost a sting operation. I don't know what the answer is, but these businesses are hurting. Their insurance rates are through the roof right now. Specifically the power sports, the trailer businesses that sell trailers in St. Agathe, and then the automotive industry, the mechanics and whatnot. Those are the ones that I'm hearing from the most. I don't know if you're noticing that as well, but these guys need help desperately. We have our own hired patrol that does it, but it's obviously not enough. So yeah, I guess I'm reaching out for a branch here to see what we can do together to make them feel a little bit more comfortable operating their business in Richshot.
Okay. Yeah, that's something we can look at. If you have some people there and yourself, you want to call back at the office there, maybe we can come up with a plan. I know it's everywhere, and those trend comes like it's hit and miss. We notice in Grunthal area, Clearfield, it seems like sometimes it's the same kind of individual from Winnipeg hitting our communities pretty hard. They do that for a few weeks, and after that they're gone, right? So, but yeah, if we can try to do a little bit something, I know visibilities is there, but we're not 24/7, right? Always at the same area, so it's hard to be everywhere. But if we can come up with a plan, I think that's in your area. You guys have your own security patrolling at night as well.
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
a hired commissioners that have come, I think, certain days of the week, random times, and they do random towns at random, I think it's random times and days of the week. So they'll call each town.
And we saw our stats before too. Since you guys have the commissioner, we saw a big difference with the crime rate, property crime, but it's still happening, right? So yeah, if you can reach out, we can talk. If you want to call me back at the office, if you have like some people involved there, and see if we can come up with a plan or something.
Sure. No, that's great. My CEO and I will work on that with you in the next coming days.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Anything else, council?
Just to clarify that, ici à Saint-Agathe, there's a group of people, like they're just they're not like the COP program, but they created a WhatsApp group of people that just, if shift workers are coming middle of the night, they see odd vehicles driving around suspiciously, all this, like a chat is created. In some cases, one guy I think was just wandering looking for food or whatever, so someone from the group had approached them and just wondering what he's doing here, or if there's vehicles driving around, somebody else will then go and just drive around just to see who this person is and try to chase him out. Do you see any wrong in taking this approach? Is this a bad thing to do?
You guys, I think it's good the community get together to look for each other, right? I think that's great. The only thing I will say is if you guys decide to do your own approach and your own thing without us being involved, you never know who you're going to deal with, right? So especially if a lot of people we deal with, they're high on meth, they can have weapons. Like you don't know what to expect. So that's something you don't want to put yourself at risk or community at risk just by going to see somebody like this, and it turn out to something bad can happen out of it. So if we can be involved, like I will suggest you guys reach out, right, to let us know, okay, we have this guy here, this is what's going on, we have an eye on him, so at least we can send a patrol in the area to help a little bit more. But to share information between you guys in the community, I think that's great. You guys keep an eye on each other, and I think that's okay.
Okay, maybe I know we're supposed to be doing or whatever community visits, or I forget what it's called. There's with council just to go visit our communities. Maybe, I don't know, we can take that opportunity to touch upon it or whatever, and just let the people know that the police force is there available if they ever need to talk to them or whatnot. Because
you never know who you're going to deal with, eh? So
no, I agree.
You guys are one of two guys, so you know what, we'll approach this guy and he pull out a knife on you guys, right?
Yeah.
You don't know, right? It's more for your safety, but yeah.
Okay, c'est bon, merci.
C'est bien.
Perfect, thank you. I'm having some screen difficulties here, but I can still hear everyone. So council, do you have any other questions?
Good here.
You're good? Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, you two. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I don't know what I did here, but we will continue on. Councillor Pelletier, can I get you to chair for a second while I change over my screen?
You bet.
Well, now it's good, Chris.
Well, it's good now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Never mind, Councillor Pelletier. Stay where you are. Okay, we are moving on to 7.1 bylaw 12, 2023 municipal maturity model for bilingualism, 3M first reading. Do I have a mover? Councillor Pelletier, second. Councillor Bondarchuk. Go ahead, Mr. CEO.
All right, as you may recall, the president of the IMM made a presentation to council back on December 6th of 2022, whereby the IMM is looking to help municipalities deliver services in both official languages. With the 3M model, it's the municipal maturity model. There's 3 global objectives in there. And basically what we would like to do, they are now ready to move ahead with their proposal, their project, so is the municipality. This would be first and second reading, and requiring a third reading, with the consent of the minister, who has now been appointed. So IMBAM has been reaching out to them and working in collaboration with province to getting this done. So some of the items in there are maybe sometimes difficult, but we will try our best and reach out to provide French language services to all.
Perfect. Thank you. Council, do you have any comments or questions in regards to this? Nothing?
No, I think it's, it'll be good.
Perfect. Okay, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 7.2 bylaw 12, 2023 municipal maturity model for bilingualism, 3M, second reading. Do I have a mover? Councillor Pelletier, second. Councillor Lemoine, thank you. Second round here. Any thoughts? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We are looking at 8.
Your worship, we need to backtrack to the 2022 audited financial statements, the resolution from council to adopt those as presented. Item 6 point, and of course, it's right underneath the staple that I can't see the number.
1.1 under delegations. That's my fault.
Motion.
Thanks, Councillor Lemoine, second. Councillor Pelletier. Any comments, Mr. CEO? No?
No, I think our auditor did a good job in presenting the financial position. I will have an off the topic discussion with him as to timeliness of the audit again. Not quite in agreement with 100% of his statements, but we will go from there.
Okay, thank you. I'll let you bash that out with the auditor. Council, any comments? Call
No, just thank the staff.
Yeah, thank you again, staff. We appreciate the work on it. Okay, call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Moving back to 8.1.1 Grand Point Meadows Phase 3A infrastructure approval. Do I have a mover? Councillor Belanger, second. Councillor Bondarchuk.
The next few resolutions are from Public Works, whereby the 1-year warranty has expired. So therefore, if everything is in good shape, then we take over the infrastructure and release sums of money related to that infrastructure that we're taking over. So Grand Point Meadows Phase 3A is the retirement community area. Nothing more to report on that.
Thank you, Council. Any comments?
And here.
Okay, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. 8.1.1.1 Grand Point Meadows Phase 5A, assuming infrastructure. Do I have a mover? Councillor Lemoine, second. Councillor Bondarchuk.
This portion of infrastructure is in the Grand Point Meadows area, which comprises of properties along Grand Point Meadows Boulevard, Blackbird Way, and Hester Park Cove at the north end.
Council, anything to add?
It says the deficiencies will be completed in 2024, so I guess they're confident everything's gonna be good.
Be good, we hope.
Is that a concern, Councillor Belanger? Did you not want to move forward until things were done, or what are your thoughts?
I'm putting my faith in Mike Domain, assuming he's comfortable with it, so I'm okay with it.
Okay, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item 8.1.2, Grand Point Meadows 5B, assuming infrastructure. Do I have a mover? Councillor Pelletier, second Councillor Belanger.
So 5B is properties basically along Blackbird Way, and just as reassurance for Councillor Belanger, they do have a site meeting. They walk through the properties, ensure that everything's correct. So there's public works, engineers, the developer, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a group of people there making that decision.
Perfect. Council, any other comments, questions? No, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We are at 8.1.3, Turon Creek Phase 1D, assuming infrastructure. Do I have a mover? Councillor Belanger, second Councillor Bodnarchuk.
This time in St. Adolphe, Turon Creek Phase 1D. This is in relations to Park Rose Place, which is off of Bartman Drive at the northwest corner of the development.
Perfect. Any comments from council? No, none. I'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. 8.2.1, emergency plan updates. Do I have a mover? Councillor Bodnarchuk, second Councillor Lemoine. Thank you.
On a yearly basis, our annual coordinator, Harold, must submit to council the changes in the plan for the emergency plan for the municipality of Reshot, and then submit that to Manitoba EMO. So what he's done is basically submitted only the portions of the plan that have been updated. These are cosmetic changes more than anything else. Did receive an email for Councillor Pelletier regarding missing contact information for the storm and ice blizzard section, missing some contact information, as well as other questions, and fixing some graphics on there. So I forward that to Harold to get changed, but we'll go from there after that. So.
Thank you, council. Any comments or questions?
Nope.
Okay, call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And I believe it comes to the end of the meeting with item 11, adjournment. Do I have a mover? Councillor Pelletier, second Councillor Belanger. Any final comments, council? Seeing none, before I end, we do a quick reminder one last time. We have our Remembrance Day ceremony this Saturday, November 11th. It begins at 11 a.m. So I do ask people that are attending to come around 10:45, 10:50 outside of the RM office in St. Adolphe, 352 Main Street. And, dress warm just in case it is a cold event. And we look forward to seeing everyone there to honor those that have fallen and those that serve with us today. Without further ado, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. I will adjourn the meeting at 9:54 a.m. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day. Please stop recording.